You're listening to the Savoir Faire Audio Experience.
Are you ready?
The Savoir Faire Experience is your guide to everything that has to do with lifestyle. From dating, rides, style, and entertainment. All brought to you by the editor of Savoir Faire magazine, Robert White. Anything goes on this audio experience. So, let's go.
It's still the best.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Savoir Faire Audio Experience. Today, we are connecting with a legendary songwriter in Nashville, a guy that comes from a sports background, a great family background, but he also has now part of a short film where he kind of describes some things that happened in his life. So we're definitely glad to connect with Casey Beathard. How you doing, Casey?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good, man. How's the weather where you are today? Are you in Nashville right now?
Yeah. And it's actually, it's nice. A little bit overcast, and you could maybe it's starting to feel like it's starting to get towards fall because it's not as brutal, hot and humid as it has been. So
I feel that.
It's nice. It's nice.
I always check with Nashvilleian people because I'm from there too. So I always like to know what's going on back home, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. I got you.
Yeah, very cool, man. So I want to do a little bit of a timeline kind of interview with you today and just kind of start fresh. I mean, you have this excellent songwriting career, but before that, you got some family that was involved in football, and people may know your last name from that. So maybe you can give me a little bit about your childhood and your upbringing before we dive into music and then this short film that you're a part of.
Yeah. I was actually born in California because my dad was in football, and that's where he and my mom were at the time. But he started. He was a scout with the Chiefs, and the Falcons, and that was his home base at the time. And then when I was maybe when I was about 5 or 6, he got he got hired as the Miami Dolphins player personnel director, meaning their head scout guy, the general manager under Don Shula, and so then we started. I started spending most. My parents got divorced, and I spent a lot of my time in Miami, Florida, up until 11, until he got the job with the Redskins, and we moved to Northern Virginia when I was 11, and then that's I grew up and then from there, and then he was with the Chargers, and he's in the Hall of Fame now, and he went to 7 or 8 Super Bowls with different teams, and so he had just a great career, and it was just a really fun life of being able to grow up in training camps, as a kid, running around with your brothers and thinking that was life for everybody, that you're hanging around all your heroes, all your your favorite football players are your friends, and you're in the locker rooms with them and on football fields with them, and it just seemed like. It seems like, it was just second nature. So yeah, it was just really, really great life to be growing up under in at the time.
Right. Well, you kind of adapted that some of the too, right? You played ball too, and then your son's a professional football player as well, right?
Yeah. So you're. I'm sorry. Excuse me. So that that's what you grow up around, you can't help it. Just you're throwing balls all the time and playing football and running 40s for your dad when you're 7, and you just to see if you can, and you're throwing footballs and you're playing sports, and it was just always a competitive upbringing, bringing when you're with your siblings, just always competing in everything. So. And then I played in high school up in Northern Virginia, and then ended up. I got an opportunity to go play at a school called Elon College in North Carolina, and I was a little receiver and punt returner there. And, but at the same time, you know, my mom had a little passion of she was very musical and played music, and so she and I would always share that as I grew up. I would sing with her and watch her play, and she'd sing with me, and we shared such a similar interest in music and in our favorite songs and playing records for each other. So that never went away, you know, during all that time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So your dad was the big football athlete type, and your mom was this musician and kind of, you know, a different. When you got that both from both parents, you incorporated a lot of those things.
That's right. And, and my brothers, you know, they went into I've got one brother that's a scout in the NFL now, and another one's it's a coach, and I was kind of and then I got a sister that is doing her own thing too, but I was kind of the black sheep and went into just kept diving deeper in the music area and just writing. I wrote a lot, always growing up, expressed myself in stories and papers and things like that all the time. I loved creating that way. So it's kind of wild when you look back and just seeing where and how it actually took hold of you, you know?
Yeah, man, I feel that. So I have a background as well. Like, I'm a Miami Dolphin fan, period. So the 1972 Dolphins, legendary. I'm so glad your dad was a part of that.
Yeah.
I'm a Dolphin fan through and through. So I know football's around the corner for us. But I worked and lived in Nashville as a songwriter and a performer as well. So I have to say, man, you and a handful of other guys that I actually met but didn't meet in you know, it's just such a busy industry. Like, you meet these people, they're playing out in these songwriters cafes, whatever. You were on one of my list of people I should have walked up to and said hi to. So it's great that we're finally getting connected, you know, years later. Man. I was in Nashville through 97, 98, 99. I was hanging out with all the guys that were hitting, you know, writing for everybody. I was on Music Row quite often. I was playing at the Bluebird and the Broken Spoke and all these really legendary songwriters rooms and hanging out with all these people. But I was like, man, there's just some idols that you look up to in every sport, I think, but like in songwriting, that was a huge thing for me. So you were definitely in my list of like guys to admire, and like being able to reconnect with you. I mean, we were in rooms together, but we never said hi to each other. And that's you didn't know me, and I didn't get an opportunity to talk to you. So,
that's so funny. It seems like that's how it goes. And like, it's such a small family and stuff. And actually, you know, it seems like that everybody, hey, do you know this guy or do not? You know, I always go, and this is the truth, you know, I don't know first and last name. You know, we see each other so much.
Right.
Everybody does. I might know him. I just know him by the face.
Like, I see this guy at Songwriters Nights all the time, but I've never met the man. So no, that's cool. Talk to me a little bit about kind of music and your inspiration in writing. I mean, obviously you wrote a lot of great hits for a lot of great artists, and you were really deeply involved in that, still are. But like, you know, you're in the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame, man. Like, that's like that. It's a lot of work to get to that point. But talk to me a little bit about the inspiration. It sounds like your mom was the influence, but where's your own inspiration comes from?
Yeah, it really does come from just life and where you are, where I am in life. And so when I was young, you know, before my parents got divorced, they used to, you know, sometimes there were some arguments and things going on in the house, and obviously some, you know, tension in the house between things. And then you're living with your mom and you're living with your dad. But, you know, they were both great parents, don't get me wrong. And they worked it out great. And we had a great upbringing. But there was a lot of times when I remember as a kid that I always, and this is how I've always been. I told my stepmother this the other day. She goes, you know, guys, you always seem to text. Your texts are different than everybody else. And I go, yeah, I think I think too much. I'm just constantly thinking. I'm always thinking of a different way to say it, or what am I thinking about? Where am I going? And so I remember as a kid, I was always that way. if I had something to say, I wasn't great at articulating it, off the cuff, but so I'd always retreat and then write it down and tell my mom what I thought about the night before, or when she got mad at me, or what I did, or I'm sorry, or whatever. And then it turned into that way with girlfriends or whatever, or brothers or sisters. So I was always constantly writing, just putting my heart on paper, because I couldn't express it very well. And that went all the way, and then I started playing guitar when, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old, and taking singing lessons because my mom and she wanted me to, so I still like to sing, and it was all kinds of music and taking guitar, but I didn't last long in the guitar part. It was too, I don't know.
I feel you, man, on the guitar part. I mean, when I first started writing, I didn't even know how to play an instrument. I had no clue.
Right.
So I was writing stuff down, and then I had to figure out, like, how am I going to get, the guys that I was hanging out with at these cafes and, like, learning the industry from, these guys were writing massive hits. They don't have time for me. Like, there was no collaboration kind of happening. So I'm like, look, I got these great lyrics, but I have to figure out how to learn this instrument by myself because I need to be able to play something with it. And so I had to teach myself. But my first, like, 7 or 8 chords that I learned, I don't even think they're real guitar chords. They were just sounds this guitar made so that my song could be performed out somewhere. And then one guy saw me perform one time, and he was like, you can write, but you can't play at all. And I'm like, I don't even know how to play. Like, these are completely made up. So over time, like, actually, the Broken Spoke was a big influence for me because I used to hang out in that little tuning room they used to have in the back. And the writers and performers that would come back there, they would teach me chords. My mom worked there. My mom was a manager there. So I kind of had a little bit of, they had respect for her. So they would teach me some stuff. And, like, over the years, I learned how to play guitar from people that, like, launched great careers, not only in songwriting, but also in music. So I got some really kind of cool little stories about, hey, I know this one time, this one guy came in and taught me this note, and then he turned out to be, like, the guitarist of Leonard Skinner. Like, like, it's just crazy stuff. So it was just kind of cool. It was a cool environment, but I'm with you on the guitar thing, because lately I've been wanting to get back into writing a little bit heavier. I've always been a writer, owned a magazine now, whatever. Been doing it for 11 years, but I wanted to get back into songwriting. But I'm like, I got to find a good guitarist to work with because I don't have the ability to get these. It just brings something out, like the way that the songs developed or connected, having a good instrument there, piano player, guitar player, something.
Right. Well, yeah, that was kind of early in my life. I mean, I'm talking about before I was 10, So
God. Okay. Yeah. You're a kid then.
Yeah. So I took lessons, but then it became so, it was just more of hard to learn the scales and the theory and all that stuff. And I didn't even care about it. I was like, I don't care about all that. I just want to play the songs on the radio, But anyway, I let it go. And then I started picking it back up later in high school and then in college. And I just started, and I had buddies that knew enough to know that whatever. And then my mother, passed away in 87, and I'd written a song about it, and it was the first one that I felt like that I could go out and that I actually played on stage with a band and did some things, and and some guy in the back of a bar up in Virginia one day was like, man, you said you wrote that? And I said, yeah. And he goes, man, you need to go to Nashville. And I was like, oh, really? And
says everybody,
goes,
right?
yeah, man, that's good. yeah. So, I had nothing to lose. I knew it was my passion. That was the thing I really wanted to do. So I took, so I just ended up, after when my lease was up on this place I was renting up there in Manassas, I was like, man, I drove a friend that knew somebody in West Tennessee, rode down with me, and he flew back. But just rode down, and decided that that's what I was going to go try to do, you know.
Yeah, that's solid. And then you got a writing contract in like what, 98 is when you started really kind of hitting the hits. Kenny Chesney and those guys all started picking up your music.
Yeah, no, yeah. I was in. It was more like I got here in maybe 91. So I think it was probably I got a record deal in 93 and then a publishing deal around the same time, and I was working on a record and trying to do that for about 3 years, 3 years, and then 95, 96, I changed. My record deal went away, and the label had changed and everything. And then this A. Cuff Rose was a publisher, a guy that I knew, wanted to sign me as a writer, and as opposed to just being a guy trying to get a record deal. And so I was like, all right, I'll try that. Because I never was. I think I wanted to be an artist, but I just didn't. I didn't have the stage presence. I didn't like that stage part of it. Even though I did get a record deal earlier on Capitol, but that was the part that always haunted me, and I just didn't like being on doing that so much. I wasn't natural up there, and it was apparent. And anyways, that went away, and so I just started becoming a regular singer, just a singer-songwriter in maybe 95, 96, and was writing songs at A. Cuff Rose. And maybe around then, 97, 98, when a lot of those songs I gave up the trying to be my own artist deal. So I started giving some songs up to people to record at that point. And the inspiration, like what it goes back to that, it was just, where you are in this life at the time. I really didn't know collaborating or co-writing at all. I just wrote songs based on where I was. And I think I experienced my mother going to heaven. I knew girlfriends, I had friends, I knew drinking beer, those are the things that I knew that were real to me, and so whatever my, at that time in life, that's what I wrote about. And there was a deeper relationship with God that was showing me things that I knew, but not really. And so that was like the very first song I wrote was called You Took My Heart to Heaven. And that was about my mom leaving this world. And I didn't even know much about that, but I just knew there was a God and whatever. And she passed away, and I couldn't have this relationship with whoever this girl was in the song, because my heart was gone with my mom in heaven. Anyways, and it was kind of creative or weird. And, it was, my first witnessing, maybe out loud, that I knew there was a heaven and a God, and I believe, that stuff, and that was kind of a creative, good song that made someone say, "You need to get out of here,"
Right. I mean, you have hit after hit, and I could definitely put some of these in the article. So we'll tell people who these artists are and what songs they were. But I also want to talk a little bit about a different platform, because most recently, and the reason why we really connected today, was to talk about the short film that you're a part of, The Surrender Point. And there's a group called I Am Second, which is the perspective of you are second to God, like putting him first, that kind of stuff. I know that you did a short film, but you're really vulnerable in this thing, man, like talking about the passing of your son and things like that. Can you tell me a little bit more about the short film and the mission and why you did this?
Yeah. I went, it's things you just can't make up. You can't, I just look back now, all I can say, I could attribute it all to, thank God. I mean, he's had a hold on my life whether I thought I was in control or not. And there's a lot of things you think you're in control of, and you're trying to make things, and you think it's about one thing. You try everything in life, and you go and you think the next hit will be the answer, and the next whatever night out, whatever, and then you have kids, and trying to raise my kids. They became such a focal point in my life, to a point almost God's in my life, and when I got married, my life changed to knowing I needed more, so I committed myself to a life of trying to follow Christ, and I believed in God, to believing in God, and so I was trying to raise my kids and my family that way, but you think it's a certain thing. Yeah, I believe in God, and you're going to church and you're doing the religious things, but I never really had a relationship real deep with Jesus to know truly who he really is, who he could be in my life. And I was super maybe bent on controlling my life. I didn't know what it looked like to give up, trying to chase all the things of the world and thinking that's the answer, because I knew I was still empty all the time, because I was always worried about, what are my kids going to be? When are they going to be happy? Can I get them enough? Can I this and that? And then, long story short, when my third son was killed one night in Nashville, it kind of just opened up the floodgates of everything. Like, so what now, and what is the answer? And thank God, I was steered into the Word of God and to Jesus, and it kind of showed me that I'm really not in control of anything or everything, and of nothing. And because that, of all the things, that was the one thing that I thought I had control of, and I thought that I could make sure that they were going to be happy, and I wanted to. That was the one thing that you just don't. I didn't want. That would have been the worst option. That is the worst possible scenario for a guy like me. Mess with my family, or to lose one of my children, and you realize that maybe they were becoming gods in your life, and prior to that, I had a talk with my wife about, she was like, you got to trust God with more of your life. Let all these things go. Quit trying so hard. Quit trying to make it. Quit trying to make us happy. That's not your responsibility. You can't make it. These kids, me, all these things, everything in your life are his. And I've been going to the church just like she was, but I wasn't hearing things like she was. I didn't know things that she knew, but she was trying to get me to free myself of all the responsibility of trying to be the one to make them happy, and I found out after he left this world that thank God he had been saved, and he was a great kid, is who he is and was who he was and all these things, but that, man, he is with the Lord now, and it freed me of it really did free me of worrying about all the things of this world so much, because it's only such a temporary time, because we go heavy. Our house became a church in that point.
Yeah.
Filled up, just totally friends and family of the church, and my friend pointing in me at the truth in the Word of God of who Jesus is and what He's always been telling us, that why we shouldn't cling so tightly into this world. And like, I never got all that stuff. I never really got I got the laws and stuff. Yeah, but I think I I needed God. I believed in God, and I'm thinking about if He could. That'd be great if you could make my life better. No, it's the surrender to His will for me that makes my life better, and that's what I found out. And in somewhere in that immediate testimony or something, I am second. And in the court process, it wasn't me. I mean, the Holy Spirit, literally, God just showed me who He is and who He's always been and what I didn't know, and He grew me. I know it doesn't make sense, but in the brokenness, He redeemed, He restored so much. He revealed so much to me that I'd never known about Him and the truth and eternity. So the hope, I found such a hope in the eternal perspective that the death and all that stuff meant nothing. And I was like, oh, my kids have always been yours, and you've got my kids regardless. So what? So the worst you could happen here is we lose these flesh tents, right? And and then we go live in eternity, and that was the perspective that Paul and Jesus and God in the Bible are always trying to tell us, that we're not living for here. And that was and my son Clay, who left, he always had that. He had a few things tattooed on him, but one of his things that he always said was like, live here for there, live this day for that day. Don't live. And I get it now, and it just made sense the way the kid he was. And somewhere in that testimony, somewhere I am second got in touch with me to share, and I look at it now, what an opportunity, because God has done so many, and in the brokenness and and what the enemy meant for evil, what He's turned into better fruit, and what is done that I can't even explain for people out there, that the people that have, it's not only transformed our life as a family to walk in a more peaceful, better place, and to know and more in the truth and the way, rather than that. But it's not so much as that as it is even people out there that have come up in our family's lives and just been affected by that and by the whole story. And so I just feel so grateful at every opportunity to share that story, and who I thought He was, God was, and now who I know He is. And it's just changed life and changed everything. Yeah. And the crazy thing is like, that's the crazy thing. As I look back, I even remember back in the day when some of those earlier hits I was having. I remember the battle I was having internally, going, man, I've got these better songs that'll say this or say that, or that have said this or spoken about life and family and better things that I think will move people. But why in the world do the people flock to 10 Rounds with Jose Cuervo,
Yeah, right.
And that's your hit song. And I'm like borderline embarrassed, because I'm going to church and I'm trying to be a religious guy. And then I got this hit. I don't even drink Jose Cuervo, but it was fun to write with my friends, and I get it. And I've been at that party before, and I've been that guy before, but it's supposed to be weird. And so you're like just going, what am I doing, oh Lord? And you think you feel guilty. And then you look, and then a few more of those silly songs happen, and you get hits, but I never was fulfilled, because I wanted these other things to happen. But, it just showed me that I look back and go, God, it makes sense now, because that was all part of the road that built you, that got you to the next room, the next place, the next song.
Yep.
Because you look back, if it wasn't for those silly songs, and and maybe, not maybe, I know God knew the story way back in the day. So He's thinking, well, I can use you. I can redeem all this. I know there might be silly songs, and it might not be for my glory.
Well, it may come from a different perspective too. I can see that, like, these songs and your talent and ability to write and put it into music and have these artists pick them up and make them go number one, and everyone knows the lyric and everyone knows the wording, may be the reason why people listen to that music. Maybe they're not on the right path potentially in life. They're listening to that music. They're kind of doing the party scene that you and I both know from younger years. And then they kind of do a deep dive into some of this stuff. I mean, I didn't know about you originally until I did a deep dive, started looking at these albums and figuring out who the writers were and trying to really study who the strong guys were in an industry that I wanted to be a part of. And that's how I came across, like, your name, your music, and figured out who you were. But, like, now that we're communicating now about this message and this different belief system that you have in life compared to where you were, I think the message gets across better because you came from something that was completely different, and now you've completely understood it. You completely understand it on the other side of something very dramatic that no parent wants to go through. You've learned lessons and figured out exactly where you stand and where you stand with God, your relationship with him at this point in life. And I think that's probably the best way to kind of to say, this is the reason why you were given that lifestyle before. This is the reason why you were given the ability to build a platform, to get these awards, to do that stuff. Because now who you are now, that's a huge platform to jump from and to experience more. Like, you and I wouldn't be having a conversation about religion and God and beliefs if we didn't connect through songwriting years ago, or if I didn't know who you were from that perspective. So,
amen.
Right?
You know, that's so crazy. That's exactly right. And I'm like, you know, that's where it starts to make sense. To start going, oh, you were there. You saw me write these songs back then and all these things. And next thing you know, you're you know, you're on stages or whatever, and you think, okay, what is this about? And then, because and no offense to anybody, but I mean, I start recognizing immediately in the wake of that tragedy, you know, when everybody wants to talk to you, and I wasn't really ready to talk at all, but like
Right.
there's newspapers and these people want to talk about whatever, and the way the headlines go, and I don't want to sound pretentious or it's a hit songwriter guy, whatever, and loses his son, that type thing, and you're going, but if I'm not what they call a hit songwriter, if I'm the mailman, no one cares, right?
Yep.
Unfortunately, but if you're the hit songwriter guy, or you're the quarterback, or you're the whatever, then they want to hear what you have to say, and it's like, wow, okay, and then it makes a bigger stage that you could glorify that you're still stuck with truth.
That's what I respect too. I mean, I interviewed this past week. I actually interviewed Way Jennings. Like Waylon Jennings' grandson.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Way Jennings, we talked about addiction. His whole life was addiction. He was wrapped up in it, and it was a mess for him for years and years and years. And here he is at like 44 now, married with kids and launching a record career, and it's like, I want to learn from guys that were gripped by the worst of it and overcame it. Those are the guys I want to learn from, not people that were like born into something. Like, I don't want to learn about, for example,
right.
I don't want to learn about being rich and wealthy from a kid that was born into millions and millions of dollars in wealth. I want to learn from the guy that took nothing and became something. Like, so in religion, or in my perspective in that case, I want to connect with people like you, with like Way, and those people that can teach me something that was completely different than a way I ever believed before.
That's right. It's like I want my pastor to have been battling in the world a long time, overcome a lot of things that could tell me that has wisdom,
Exactly.
That's right. So I could definitely, I'm like, it doesn't make any sense for me to be, if you'd have told me 40 years ago that I'd be telling you that I found the Lord and he is the answer, because I did. I had a lot of fun and a lot of partying and drinking beer,
Oh,
and
yeah.
going out and all that stuff. We all do, and it's
Right.
but I will say this, that there was always an emptiness at the end of the day and stuff. And, and I don't have any problem with people with any of that. I'm just saying that all I'm saying is I've tried a lot of things in my life, and I've done a lot of things, and I've written a lot of songs, and nothing, I at the end of the day, I just, it's all been a journey, and a lot of the things I've chased in the world, that just have left me empty at the end of the day. And somehow, some way, God has redeemed, a lot of the empty ways, and made me understand what this whole journey so far has been about, and what
Right.
it's been, and I'm grateful. And if I never would have thought I would be able to say that, my son leaving this world, but if I didn't know that he was saved, and didn't know he was the truth about eternity, and that he is living in heaven, that then I would be miserable. I probably would take my own life, honestly.
Yeah. It's
But
tough.
but knowing that, and how temporary this time is, and watching my dad leave also a year and a half ago, it's just like, it's just, I don't fear anymore, and I'm free from all the stuff I was trying to do and trying to make and trying to write. Now it's just, I've grown immensely, I would say, and it doesn't sound right to say this, but I don't think my son would take it back. I think seeing what the difference, the transformation it's made in our family and the people around his leaving this world, what it's done, and I don't think he would come back for anything for that. For what it's done, I'm just grateful for what God has done, and it doesn't even make sense to even say that, but
Yeah.
to me it does, and I never thought I'd ever be able to say that if I did not have an encounter with a living God. It's just crazy. I can't even make it up. I can't make up the story of my life. And like I write songs, and that's what I do, but there's no chance I can make up this story, how it came
Right.
all about and came around,
Yeah. Well, man, Casey, I'm so glad that you and I were able to connect, even talking about, the surrender point, and, there'll be links for people to check that out. But, I'm glad that we were able to have a conversation finally, and something that's real and in depth about life. And, I respect you highly as a songwriter. I respect you even more from the story perspective that we just talked about. And I appreciate you talking with me today. It's been a blessing.
Oh,
actually.
man, are you kidding? Thank you for calling, and thank you for being interested.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, man. Well, I wish you the best. Enjoy some of that Nashville weather, and we'll touch base in the future.
Great. Thank you.
All right, have a good day.
You too.
Thank you for listening to the show. Please take a minute to head over to www.savfair.com and subscribe to our publication.